Hi everybody, Vanessa P here. So today I wanted to share a little bit about the subject of birth trauma. So birth trauma is the main subject of why I decided to get into perinatal mood and anxiety disorders as my specialty for my counseling practice. So I'm going to share a little bit about my story. My first child was born in 2012, and I had just moved to Alaska, so this is where I live right now. And I had just gotten married. It was our first year of marriage, and I had gone through a lot of depression. I think it all started because it was just a different environment, getting adjusted to married life, having to make friends, not very many friends, and just all the changes that came with that. I had a full-time job and full-time school doing my master's, to going to a part-time job and really having no one to hang out with and no one to really share with other than my husband. But he had a full-time job, and so I was missing a lot. So during my pregnancy I had a lot of depression, and then when I was going to give birth, just like everyone else, you make up these birth plans that you're like, oh, this is what's going to happen and this is what I'm going to go for, and it never turns out the way you plan it. So that's exactly what happened with me, and I had these expectations of myself that I didn't allow myself to waver from my plan. And so, to make the story short, I end up having to have all interventions when I wanted to have a very natural birth. I ended up having a lot of interventions, Pitocin, I had an epidural, I had a lot of tearing, and it was just a very scary situation. I wasn't prepared to deal with the pain of actually giving birth. I just always had heard that it wasn't that bad. My mom had really smooth births. There are a lot of moms who just have really smooth births and it's not that painful, or maybe they just have really good pain management, like endurance or something, but that was not me. And so it kind of really threw me out for a loop, and I was just scared to death. I thought I was going to die. And so being somebody who had a master's in counseling and bachelor's in psychology, I knew what it looked like to have post-traumatic stress disorder, and I had all those criteria. I met all of those. And I was thinking, from a birth, like, that's weird. So I started looking up, is there such a thing as, like, birth trauma? And sure enough, there is such a thing as birth trauma. And so I started looking for resources in Alaska, in my state, and was not finding anything. And this really concerned me, and so I decided to do something about it. And so I started looking up ways that I could be of help. And so that's what kind of got it started me on this journey of helping moms in this area. Since then, I've had 2 other kids. So, and each time it is something I have to work through, especially the really intense pushing period. I kind of go back to that, oh my gosh, this hurts really bad, I'm going to die, type of mindset, and I kind of have little flashbacks. So it is intense. I think that's why a lot of times, you hear like the battle stories of these moms, like, oh, I was in labor for 14 hours. Oh yeah, well, I was in labor for 3 days. Oh yeah, well, I had a C-section and an epidural and the baby's cord was tied around his neck. And I know a lot of new moms, I know I did, I would get annoyed and be like, why are you telling me all these scary stories? But now as a professional and as a mom of 3, I can see how, like, all of us moms are just wanting to be heard and validated that, yes, this was scary and I made it and I'm okay and alive. And maybe being able to be like, if I survived 4 days of labor with no food, being in the hospital, having to be, ripped open, then you can make it too. You can make it and it's going to be okay. But the subject of birth trauma is just a really vast subject. But I wanted to give you a few tips on what you can do and things that I've done for myself, having to deal with, being around birth trauma. So when I got pregnant with my second child, I was so scared. I was like crying and just thinking like, I am gonna die. Like, I don't want to do that again. But the things that I did to prepare myself were, I read up on what exactly is the body doing? What are some of the chemicals in my body that should be released in order to help me through, the painful labor stages? So a lot of mindfulness techniques, being able to be in the moment of pain, acknowledge it, but not let it take over your thoughts and your entire body, or it's your thoughts. Feeling the pain, acknowledging the pain is there, and then riding the wave of pain, not trying to make it stop, but going with it. So some of the things I used was music that was just really calming, really inspiring. Sometimes I needed the calming stuff. Sometimes I needed the upbeat stuff of like, okay, I'm going to do it. Come on, come on, come on. Like, the Rocky theme song. Da-da-da-da-da. I got this. And other times I just needed like a really slow, inspiring worship song. Where I was just connecting with God and me and God and being like, okay, you created me. I know that my body is designed for this. And so that helped me because I'm a very spiritual person and I have a good, I try to have a good connection with God. And so that helped me. Having my mom there was very helpful. Having a doula there, giving me encouragement and kind of reading my body language and kind of knowing that, oh, she looks kind of hot, so she'd bring me some ice chips, or if I'd say I'm hungry, she brought this really delicious pita bread that, I know what pita bread tastes like, but right there and then I was like, oh, this is the most glorious piece of bread. Please, like, bread me, I'd say, and she'd give me a piece of bread. And so, being able to engage any of those senses, so tactile, smelling, I had some essential oils going, but one of the main things was these statements of positive reinforcement. I got this. I am in control. The pain is doable. This is good. This will end. And so I'll be sharing a video clip soon with the some of those statements that I said both for my second birth and my third birth that I needed to hear as I was going through the waves of contractions, to hear them in order for me to keep grounded and not lose myself in this fear of pain. So that was another thing. Another thing was that I prepared for the actual journey of being in the moment. And so being able to be prepared and not try and push past it, but being in the moment and letting the moment come and go. So those are some of the tips that I have for you. with birth trauma. There are so many other things that I can share, but I mainly wanted to share my story and my experience and how I was able to kind of overcome that. I'll also be sharing a JPEG or PDF or whatever. I'm not really good with those terms, but I'm going to share a list of positive statements as a mom that you can tell yourself, that whether it is, you're having a tough day or whatever, those thoughts can creep up into our mind and do a lot of damage. And so being able to replace those negative thoughts with positive thoughts is the number one thing. So I'm going to go ahead and be sharing that on my Facebook page as a as a picture, and also on my Instagram. So be looking forward for that, and I hope you have a wonderful day. If you've given birth and you survived that trauma, go you. Share your story with others. And also, if you still find yourself that you are really afraid and unable to face giving birth again, if you're pregnant or considering getting pregnant, there are some really great books out there. Message me. I can give you a few references of books that you can read. Or if you're wanting to speak to a professional in your area, I can hook you up with a professional in your area as well. So thanks again for listening to my story, my battle story. And I hope you have a great day.